One of the things you're going to see quickly as you begin to think about your surgery or the set of behaviors you're going to engage in post-surgery to facilitate healing is that there's a lot of choices. There's a lot of sort of tools and tactics. And what we're going to try to do here as we explain our D2R2 model to you is just give you a theoretical framework to understand how a lot of the behaviors, even around rehab, done by your rehab professionals, or some of the things you're going to do at home, how they fit into a schema. Now, this works pre-surgery as well as post-surgery, when we're trying to give ourselves the healthiest environment with sort of the best chances of having a sort of really successful surgical outcome. And certainly surgical outcomes can happen on a continuum, with the same continuum that we sort of roll into the surgical day with. Am I highly inflamed? Am I well rested? What can I control? So the D2R2 model helps us to think about sort of the tissue health at a local level, at a tactical level. And the first D here is decongest. And what you'll see is that our first order of business is to make sure that we try to show up with a tissue that's not very inflamed and not very swollen or congested. And there are a lot of tactics around that. That might be elevation, that might be compression. We might use an NMES device, a neuromuscular electric stim device, like an H-wave that helps us to decongest the tissues. We might use cupping to try to help manage that. Right? What you're going to see, though, is that initially, especially post-surgery, swelling and the management of congestion is really of chief control. And oftentimes, our entire protocol process is predicated on the swelling that normally exists after a person has a surgery. So sometimes, for example, that we have knee ranges of motion that are our goals, but those knee range of motion goals happen to correspond with typical management of post-surgical swelling. And when we are able to get ahead of the swelling or manage the swelling more effectively, it sort of opens up the doors for us. It allows us to heal at the rate of human beings. A congested or swollen tissue potentially is not a very healthy healing environment to begin with. So when people are heading towards surgery, there's sort of two camps. One is, don't worry about it, we're gonna have surgery here, so do your best. Second is, hey, let's see if we can manage as much of that swelling as we can. That decongestion is driven, remember, predominantly through the lymphatic system, which is that parallel sewage system to our sort of more widely well-known sort of cardiovascular system. So instead of just blood in, the lymphatic system drains big particles and normal sort of tissue waste. It's like the sewage system of the body and can generate upwards of 3 to 4 liters of lymph a day of this lymphatic fluid a day. So one of the things that happens is that when we see joints that have been operated on, the lymphatic system is often disrupted by the surgical process. And as it takes a minute to kind of rebuild all these associated vascular networks and tissue networks, the congestion oftentimes gets held behind. Or because we're immobilized and we can't have a muscle contraction, it's difficult for us to decongest as well as we'd like. So if we can sort of upregulate the ability to clear out the sewers, we're more apt to bring the groceries in and do a better job of taking the garbage out, which means we have a healthier, faster recovery and potentially with less pain. You're going to see that, again, post-surgery, one of our chief goals is management of swelling and that post-surgical swelling. And the post-surgical swelling is real. It's your body's sort of response to splint the area, but also to bring in all of the cocktails that help that tissue to heal and help it to manage. And so if we somehow don't sort of divest ourselves from that swelling, what oftentimes happens is that we have increased pain, we have tissues that are slower to knit, and we have generally just a less healthy environment, and that can have potentially even neuromuscular connection implications, which means I lose sort of that control of that area. So decongestion suddenly becomes very, very paramount. And initially in that post sort of acute or a post-surgical sort of hyperacute setting, our goals are how can we manage as much swelling as we can. But any system or model that helps you to manage and think about decongestion, which could even be just moving, walking, getting on an exercise bike, can be very, very powerful to the system. So you're going to see and understand why we recommend some of the systems that we recommend, because we're trying to decongest those tissues. The second D is desensitize. One of the things that happens is that we often end up with sensitized tissues. Either the surgery itself or the swelling can make these tissues very sensitive. The brain can start to perceive them as threat. And so part of our model here is to help us have a significant pain management strategy so that we can sleep better, we're not afraid of moving, that we have better neuromuscular connection, et cetera, et cetera. We know that pain is a real threat to sort of our healing success. It's a real hidden stressor. And post-surgical pain is real. And so we need to make sure we have a set of tools that will allow us to feel better, even if that's just interrupting how the brain is thinking about what's going on with the tissues, even if it's very sort of neurologically based, threat-based. What we also like to do is see how much we can desensitize these tissues or these areas without having to use pain medication. Now, the pain medication here is between you and your physician, and we ask you to take that seriously. A lot of people are like, I don't like pain meds. No one likes pain meds. It's a real problem. And opiate use in the United States and around the world is still a considerable problem. But post-surgery, sometimes being able to have a little bit of pain meds, but have a whole bunch of other things working for you means that we can get off pain meds faster so that we can sleep better and that we can sort of move and also be getting the signals of whether we're overdoing it. The first R here stands for Reperfuse. And perfusion is shorthand for blood flow. So what we're really thinking about is how can we get the maximum blood flow to these areas? Tissues that are not very in use, so we're just laying around and trying to protect, it's hard to get adequate blood flow in there. It's also hard for us to have sort of think about bringing in the max amount of nutrients in that system that's congested and immobilized. So what are the tools available to us to sort of turn on that perfusion? To again, get the garbage out, but more importantly, bring the groceries back in, bring these nutrients back in. And that means that we might even focus on some of the things that we're eating so we can bring on hand sort of some of the building blocks of this healing process. But there's a lot we can do to improve blood flow to an area, from muscle contraction to non-exercise activity to even seemingly low-level activity. Even sort of breathing patterns and breathing protocols can make a big difference in terms of how we're able to perfuse the tissues. Even things as simple as having access to a heating pad can do a lot to change the viscosity of the lymphatic system so that we can get that congestion out, but also open up and vasodilate some of those tissues so we can get the blood flow back in. So again, reperfusion is part of the game, and blood flow restriction might even, and some of the BFR techniques that we're going to talk about might be very useful in this realm. And the last one is restore. What we're really talking about here is not just how do we restore your function. Of course, that's important and between you and your therapists and coaches, but also just talking about restoring your range of motion. So early mobilizing of the tissues means that we may have a lot of movement without motion as I quad set or squeeze the ball if I'm having a shoulder surgery. I may be trying to protect a native range because of the surgical repair, but ultimately my goal is to think about, I have to begin to restore my native ranges of motion. How am I going to straighten my elbow or straighten my leg or put my arm over my head or make sure that my arm can do all the things it does? With some of our total knee replacement protocols, we talk about making sure that you're sitting all day long or noodling all day long on sort of the things that your body will do. Are you taking your hip into extension? Are you taking your hip into flexion? Are you sitting on the ground? These are kind of the ideas of being able to make sure that we're not sort of just immobilized and then hoping to go kind of full gusto back into our activity. But more importantly, this D2R2 model now means that you can begin to understand if someone is suggesting acupuncture or massage, or you're doing something that like cupping or scraping that helps to fit into one of these things. What are we doing? Ultimately, any soft tissue healing, any surgical sort of intervention that's helping us speed up or maximize our healing response is ultimately just doing or helping along what the body would be doing for itself. So there's probably not a lot of actual magic can go on. Your body is an incredible healing machine. There's not an age where you stop healing. So keep in mind that you're either going to heal at the rate of a human being or slower, but more importantly, how do we facilitate the body to do what it naturally does on its own?